Decades, Gary Stevens has been around Maine sports. In the early 2020s, he was the athletic director at Thornton Academy in Saco. That job gave him a good view of what happened, particularly to the high school athletic scene as the COVID pandemic rolled out in Maine. Gary Stevens has just co-authored a new book. It's called Stolen Seasons: How Maine Sports Survived the COVID-19 Pandemic. And he's with us here on 207. Thanks for coming in. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Rob.
It's kind of a grim story, kind of a sad story, as you go back and see how many athletes, how many kids were affected by COVID, what the impact was. Why did you want to tell this story, Gary?
Well, I think it was a story that needed to be told. There were a lot of very heroic things going on behind the scenes in all levels of Maine sport, professional, collegiate, and high school. And my co-author Dave Ead and I started discovering some of these stories, and so we thought that it would be great to encapsulate the breadth and depth of things that were happening to provide opportunities for people who wanted to participate in sport during a time when it was initially shut down.
You look at what the impact was in 3 different levels of games: high school, college, professional. Let's start with high school. Was the impact especially strong on kids because they're so passionate about sports at that age and because sports mean so much to them?
Without question. I think one of the key things is that kids need connectivity. They need connectivity with each other. They need connectivity with their coaches. They needed connectivity with their schools, and their education was taking place virtually. But it's very difficult to do that in terms of athletic participation. You need to be out there on the fields, on the courts, wherever, being involved. And I think that being part of a group of people who had a passion for something was part of what was the tragedy of those seasons that were stolen by COVID-19.
You look at the big picture here, but you also look at specific examples. On the college level, one is at Bowdoin College in Brunswick. What happened there, the way that the pandemic affected the athletic programs? Give me a quick snapshot of what occurred.
Well, Bowdoin had just, their women's basketball program had just competed in 2 consecutive national championship games, Division III. And they had an opportunity to host a Sweet 16 round in Brunswick featuring teams that came from Washington State, Georgia, and Indiana. They converged on Brunswick the week of March 9 through 13. And our chapter tells the story of each of those 4 programs who had gotten to this opportunity. They're one step away from the national championship Final Four and learning literally on the eve of their tournament games that their seasons were over. And so we take you on the buses inside the gymnasiums. We take you to Portland Headlight, where one team was just doing some sightseeing when the NCAA announcement came down. And we tell you about what happened to each of those young folks moving forward.
Keenly disappointing. This book will remind people of things that they've probably forgotten about. For instance, I had forgotten about one of the things that the Portland Sea Dogs did. It went about, the Sea Dogs went about 600 days without being able to play. Revenues down dramatically for the club, but they opened up the Had Links at Hadlock, a sort of a little mini golf course out there where people could play on the field.
Exactly. They actually set up the tee boxes in the luxury suites that surround what was called Hadlock Field, now Delta Dental Park. But they also brought in a dining on the diamond feature where you could come to Hadlock Field, be socially distanced, eat on the infield, have service, and eat ballpark fare. It
just shows how people got creative during the pandemic because they had to, because they needed money, and because they wanted to give people a little sunshine in their lives. I just want to mention that your co-author, Dave Ead, is, of course, the longtime sportscaster at WGME. We asked him to join us, and his employer wouldn't allow him, but we appreciate that you and he wrote this book. Let me ask you real quickly, what was the one thing that most surprised you that you learned in writing this book?
I think the one thing that surprised me most was how willing people were to tell their story. They didn't want to be forgotten. Their seasons had been stolen, and they didn't want their legacy to be stolen as well.
Again, the name of the book, Stolen Seasons. Gary, thanks for coming in. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we've got more information on the book. You'll find it in the 207 section of our app and website. Stay with us. We'll return in just a moment.